My guest today is a 30-year veteran improv performer. He's a sketch director, an improv coach, and teacher. He's taught at festivals and theaters all over the U.S. and internationally. He's been a featured guest on Acid Wax, Yes But Why, 10 Minutes with Jay Suko, and the Changed podcast. He's not only one of the most consistently funny performers that I've personally ever seen, but he is a kind-hearted, wise, generous teacher, and his singing voice is nothing short of angelic. I'm very excited to speak with Chuy Zarate. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. My goodness, what an introduction. You did your homework.
I try, right? Well, you got a lot of accolades. I mean, I started to put all the different troops you've been in, but there were so many. I was like, the intro is going to take 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's impossible. You came up with some podcasts that I'd forgotten I'd been on. So that's
Nice.
great. Yeah, I was like, wait, I was on that, wasn't I?
I'm glad we're all so memorable for you, Chuy.
Well, you are. It comes with age. Like I just
Oh, yeah.
forget, you know, a lot.
Totally fair. Let's start at the beginning, if you don't mind. At one point, you weren't an improviser, and then that
Right.
ended. How did you become one?
My story goes back pretty far. My mom was a theater teacher, so like my entire life I've been around theater. And when I was very little, like I was about 5 or so, she started taking me to these speech tournaments that they would do on the weekends because they would go and they would present their poetry and prose to the high schoolers and that, and then in between, they didn't have computers back then and stuff, so they had to keep themselves busy. So what they would do is improv games, believe it or not. And I mean, this is how, could you imagine now how geeky that would be? But back then it was really, really cool.
Getting all the ladies with this, yes, and
That's right, baby. When I was about 7, they started letting me play with them. And I started doing little improv games with them and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And then I think my first time performing for an audience was when I was about 15. I started a troupe at my high school under the guise of a local comedy legend named DB in San Antonio.
Nice.
And then the rest is history. I've been on performing in front of audiences for 32 years now, I guess.
32 years.
They were
Wow.
coming up on 32. Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
I think I'm just getting to the point where I can just say like the decade. I say, yeah, it's over 30. And then when it gets
Yeah,
over,
yeah.
like, yeah, it's over 40.
Totally fair. 15. Wow. So I mean, you are. I mean, by the time you were in your 20s, you'd already had so much more experience probably than a lot of people who were just coming into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to brag about this, but I've never had a class really like an improv. I don't mean that as like a big like flex or anything. It's just, yeah, I was doing it at a very young age, so I picked up things pretty easily. And I never had a class. But, actually did. I take that back. There were 2 workshops I took way back when in the 90s. I took 2 with Gary Austin. If you know who he was with the Groundlings, and it was fantastic. Really good workshops. And so good I took it twice.
Nice.
So yeah, in my 20s, it was very much a thing where I was like, all right, I'm ready to run another troupe. And so I did. And that
Cool,
was great.
man. That's cool.
Yeah.
To get so much experience. I mean, to learn so much just from experience. I mean, obviously I love classes. I teach them. You teach them. We all teach them. They're great.
Yeah.
But I mean, to just put in the years and get that time, and you must have had a perspective that was like sharp as hell at that point.
Well, I owe a lot to my mom. She was my theater teacher, and she didn't really understand what improv was, but liked it, and gave me a lot of room to figure it out. Like, I mean, nothing like a single mom to put you in front of a television. And so Whose Line Is It Anyway was on, and I would watch that, the old British version, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to be on SNL. I wanted to do the whole thing. And she helped me foster that for the most part because she gave me a lot of stage time at the school that I went to because she was my teacher. So I was like, Mom, I want to do an improv troupe. And she's like, okay, you have to do it after school. I'm like, that's fine.
And improv is not about what you know; it's about who you know. And you knew
Exactly. I knew the big cheese, if you will.
So, after 30 plus years, what still keeps you doing this art form?
Man, I do improv now for a pretty specific reason, and this is kind of shitty. Can I cuss on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, all the time. Cuss all day.
It's kind of shitty. I'm a director, trained director, really. When it comes down to it, I direct theater, and because of that, when I do scripted theater, I'm not a very good like person to have in your cast because I'm not a very good actor to work with. I have my own ideas about what should be happening, and I'm not good about hiding it.
Fair.
And so I realized that about myself pretty quick. And so I focus more on directing when it's scripted stuff. And then when I do improv, it's kind of like all that's on me. You know, any choices I make are my fault or my partner's fault. And it's our job together to get through it. It's not like some vision that I don't agree with completely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even when somebody gives you an offer, you take it, you can kind of mold the offer to something you believe in. You know what I mean? And frankly, audiences, man, I love being in front of an audience. It's one of my favorite things. Just that I miss it so much right now.
Yeah.
That sound of an audience laughing and knowing that you killed it. Man. I've done one show since the pandemic started, and it was a live show recently at a festival outdoor for kids.
Oh.
And man, just it was like I was home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I was out in the middle of the heat and under this tent, terrible situation. You know, one of those that you always go, "Oh shit, we got one of these today."
Yeah.
You know, like and I was ready for it, and it was so much fun. I was so friggin' tired after because I've been on my feet doing improv for. And
right.
Sitting in this chair is a lot easier.
Yeah. Get Grandpa his improv chair. He's got to sit down.
Please, I'm going to improv from a stool.
In fact, if you could get a reclining bed, that would be perfect.
Chewy's always playing these lazy boy characters. I don't understand.
Yeah, but he looks real comfortable.
Man, yeah, I tell you, he's very comfortable on stage, literally. Like he's.
At some point, someone's got to put together Lazy Boy Improv, where it's just like 4 Lazy Boy chairs, and you just put them on there, and it's just like, all right, audience.
Well, I think there's a 4 white dudes troupe out there somewhere that needs to do that for sure.
Finally, they get some recognition.
Just bro down, you know, and some lazy boys.
Those 4 white guys have been just working so hard.
They have been, man. They don't get it. They're understood. They're not understood, man. They're just not the plight of a white male improviser. I mean, you can tell me, Rich. You can talk to me, man. I know you're down.
Sorry.
You work with a lot of brown people, but
oh my god. Bits. Chuy, what was the Austin scene like? Like you've seen it, you know, go through so much change. What talk about that, please.
In the late 90s, back in the late 90s, it was a much different scene. There weren't theaters really to play in. You played in bars, you know, or you played in, or you got a theater that was actually a like scripted theater place that would let you come in for like a festival or something like that. And you did a show there. Where I mean, a lot of it was just networking and finding a place to go. And we played a lot at I played personally at the Velveeta Room, which is on 6th Street, which is a stand-up room that was voted for about a decade the hardest room in the country to play. And so basically there was a guy barking to get people in. So we'd have just the drunkest, worst audiences. And if that's not something that didn't like toughen me up as far as improv is concerned, I don't know what would. I mean, it's almost like the Israeli army. Everybody has to do it for 2 years. I think everybody should have to do the Velveeta Room for 2 years because you come out a monster. Like, there were only like 5 troops, you know, in town, and then the Hideout opened up, so another troupe opened up over there, and there were a couple clubs that were devoted to improv just for a minute, you know. And I left town. I went to San Antonio to raise my kid. He was like 6 months old, so we wanted to live near family. Did improv down there. I came back 7 years later. When I came back, there were like 25 troops. Wow. And I was like, holy shit, somebody's been doing their work. This is fantastic. There's places to play. There's, you know, regular shows. I mean, friends of mine who I'd known, like Shayna Merlin and Jeremy Sweet Lamb, like they were people I kind of started with in town, like as far as doing professional stuff. And they were still going strong, which was awesome to see. And then now I would pre-pandemic, I would wager there were somewhere upwards of 200 troops playing in Austin, Texas regularly.
Wow.
Which, if you think about the amount of stage time that is, I mean, like that's how many stages we had at one point. We had like 5.
Wow.
So it was it's nice now. And back then everybody was a lot more contentious. They were very like trying to get somewhere. They were trying to go to LA or New York or Chicago. You know, they weren't trying to foster anything here. And there were a few of us that were like, you know, this is okay. We want to be medium-sized fishes in a small pond, you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nowadays, I mean, the community's so strong. I mean, everybody reaches out to each other when we need help for even personal stuff, you know.
Nice.
They're always hanging out together and stuff. I mean, I say they because you know the kids. I mean, they welcome the old man every now and again, which is nice. And yeah, things are so sweet and nice around here, and I think it's because people have decided to live here and do improv rather than have I mean, there are those that have aspirations of something else, which is great. I fully champion that. But the people that are here that are doing it daily, trying to make the audiences of Austin happy, man, we were doing really good before the pandemic started. And hopefully we'll get it back real quick.
Yeah, here's how. I mean, obviously, none of us know what it's going to look like, 5-6 months from now in any city at this point.
Right.
It's funny you're talking about the Velveeta room. Like, I've never played that place, but I got my start in Dallas, Texas. Which is just a lot of fine, upstanding citizens in cowboy hats. The top quality audience when you're barking at 11 p.m. at night to get them in there. What the hell's this bullshit? Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Some fancy act? Tell me a joke. Tell me a joke, goddammit. I didn't pay $5 to come in here and watch you dance around. What are you doing? You want me to talk? No, I just heckle. I don't talk.
Improv for Texans, man.
Texans, man. Tell you what.
Okay.
Running troops though there that like is super commercialized, like that 4-day weekend. Have you heard of those guys?
That's where I got my start.
Oh, did you really? Yeah. Cool. We should talk about that offline sometime.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. No, yeah, we probably know a lot of the same people.
Yeah, maybe so.
So I know you said that you didn't start with classes necessarily, but like when you were starting, were there any like lessons of improv that were taught to you that you came up with that were just like, oh, this is right, and 30 plus years later, you're like, I still hold true to that thing that I learned that long
ago. I think the one thing is to know what battles to pick and fight. You know what I mean? Like with just the running of things. Like there was a situation where like down here where my B troop had written some sketches and done a sketch that just killed. We did a great job.
Nice.
And the A troop thought they had some sort of ownership of that those sketches. And we were like, wait a second. No, you don't. These are ours. We wrote them. We perform them. They're good because we perform them. You're not taking these to like the HBO showcase or whatever.
Wow.
And we broke off from that troop, honestly, as another troop. But that was a battle I wanted to fight. There's smaller battles that I don't fight, like just about scheduling and stuff like that. Whether or not we get to keep a space, that sort of thing. Just staying going. But the larger battles are very important. Don't sweat the small shit is what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's big shit that's going to be a lot more important than that.
Oh, I dig it.
That's like full on troop style. If you talk about just on stage itself, I think the biggest lesson I've always learned is, well, the thing I always tell my classes is do as I say, not as I do.
Well, okay.
But, because honestly, we all screw up on like the quote unquote rules on stage.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna fuck up. You're gonna mess up, and you need to pick yourself up and try to fix it. I'm always trying to figure out what an audience wants rather than what I want to give them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And maybe that's not very satisfying to some people, but to me, it's everything.
When I was taught in comedy sports to read the audience, that's our number one priority. Read the room. What do they need? And I stick by that still to this day. I think that's what's so important. That
correlates to life so easily too. Yeah. I can walk into a room and I know what the room needs. A friend of mine, my friend Tyler, who I play with, Tyler Gross from Amy with, he gets pissed at me because a lot of times I'll change persona almost in certain situations. He's like, man, you're not being yourself. I'm like, no, I'm being pleasant. I'm just getting to this situation. Instead of just being in the corner all quiet, I'm trying to, foster something there. And that comes from improv, man. That comes from knowing how to read a room for sure.
I love it. So on the opposite end of that, is there anything that you learned like early on that later you were like, oh, that doesn't work for me anymore, or that's not even right?
Well, I'm getting used to this, but it's always been very hard for me. Is the idea that questions are okay in a scene, and I'm getting used to that. I'm better at it now. It used to be I would just cringe when somebody would question because it's like
Oh,
I can still teach for certain exercises, no questions for this exercise, like try
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
focus on, whatever. But yeah, in a real show, I mean, people do ask questions in life, so it's kind of like silly not to ask a question, I guess, depending on the question, of course. But then there was something else I thought about. Oh yeah, that not. I mean, this is such a cliche, but not all improv has to be funny. I really have gotten a lot of fulfillment out of doing some grounded, serious improv, like dramatic stuff. And that really feeds my acting bug like a motherfucker
Oh, I
because
bet.
because those are the emotions that I feel when I'm doing it. Comedy, I'm trying to get the laugh, but I'm also maintaining a character.
Yeah.
This other character that I'm playing in a dramatic thing is, it's I put a lot more of myself into those characters than I
Nice.
do comedy. So
When
yeah,
you say doing dramatic improv, are you saying that like the show is billed as dramatic improv?
yeah,
And okay,
yeah. Or like you like say you're playing a maestro and somebody says, I just want to see a grounded scene. Out of all
yeah,
this comedy, they just want to see one thing. Yeah, you don't. I don't think it's fair to ask an audience to not know what they're getting into when it comes to dramatic improv because people have such an idea of what improv is. It's comedy, it's fun, it's I'm going to be involved, blah blah blah, that stuff, and those are all great. That's what it's about. But you're not doing them a very good service if you don't tell them ahead of time, hey, this is going to be different than what you normally see. So just know that going in, you know.
I love it. I love it. So, in my experience, improv over time, like obviously none of us can be exactly as good as we want to be on any given night, but it seems to me that what happens is that my worst show from back then is like there, and then now it's here. My best show, like the whole paradigm shifts up. Has that been your experience? And what is your worst show like now versus what it was back then, or best show?
Man, my worst show now is probably my double or triple best back then. You know what I
Nice.
mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm doing some of the I'm bragging on myself here. I'm doing some of the best improv in my life in the last 10 years,
Hell yeah.
and I'm very proud of the stuff that I've done. And there's been a lot of growth. And like you say, there's that whole like paradigm shift that where you follow this line that the better you get at it, of course, the things that you screw up on aren't going to feel as screwed up.
Yeah.
It for me, it's one of those things like if I don't get an audience, or if I say something that doesn't get a laugh or didn't get their attention that I want to get their attention, that kind of stuff bothers me. That's a bad show for me afterwards.
Mm,
But uh, luckily, those are few and far between.
sure.
Luckily, I'm very very lucky that I've done this for as long as I have and can, like you said, read a room and figure it
I-
out.
yeah.
And also
Right.
shaking it off's harder for me now because I'm like, God, you're such an idiot. You know this. You know not to do this. Why did you do this? You've been in this for how long, asshole? So kind of convincing myself that it's okay to screw up still. I don't have to be perfect every time, and I'm not perfect every time. So getting over that crap is a good way to be. I don't have a better way to say that. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm glad you're bragging at yourself because I mean, dude, you are funny. Like,
Oh, back at you, fool.
oh,
Like,
thank,
like seriously, you
thank you.
guys, I love you and rolling together. Y'all are
Oh,
amazing.
bless you. Thank
Two
you.
of my favorites.
Um, okay, so at one point you weren't a teacher and then you became one. Was that a plan? Was that something you wanted to do or you stumble into it?
I've always done it on accident, kind of. I was directed.
Mm,
So when I would direct improv troops, too. And that's kind of where the teaching in me came out. I wanted to be a teacher in like high schools when I was going to college. That's what my plan was, to be a teacher and then do theater at night. Which, if you know any teachers, that's just not a fucking thing.
you
They're constantly doing school.
sure.
But um, the first time I really really noticed that I was like teaching some people to do this stuff was there was a troupe in Austin called Fat Buckle that Lee Eddy came out of. Actually, she's a pretty famous improviser now. She's great. But And I got her to do improv. She even said it out of bounds. She was so sweet. She's always a great actress. And then I was like, you ought to do improv. And so I started her doing that. And she started Trooper College. They asked me to come direct. And so, taking that time where I knew I wasn't going to be on stage with these people, but I was going to be directing them, that sort of started the whole, okay, I'm teaching more now than anything else. As far as getting paid to teach, that's just like maybe 7 years ago at the most.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Otherwise, I've been giving it away for free. Why buy the cow, right?
You're giving away gold, Chuy. Gold. You're just giving it away.
You don't know if it's gold, but it's definitely a metal.
Definitely set off a metal detector if it was going through the airport. That's all I'm saying.
For real.
What's like a lesson that you believe would benefit every improv teacher to know?
Ooh, you're not dictating law to your classes. You're not saying that this is it. This is all you need to know about improv, because that's just not fair. I like to teach my classes to go learn something from someone else, take both sides of how it's taught, and kind of see what you like as an improviser and pick that alley to go down. There's a lot of different ways to teach this thing and a lot of ways to get to the same success. Yeah. And for a teacher to think that they're the end all be all and the only way to do it, that's just bullshit. I mean, we know that because we're always growing as improvisers. I mean, there's shit I said on stage 10 years ago that I would never say on stage today. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, just inappropriate stuff, whatever. I mean, I used to get off on being like the Tony Slattery of the troupe, if you know who that is, from Who's Line. Just this guy who like doesn't look, he's very unassuming, but he's like really dirty. So I play blue a lot, and I don't do that anymore. I try not to, at least. When I do, it's specific and it's thought out and it's like for a reason.
Yeah, you're like using it as like a weapon. Like, I'm gonna pull out dirty right now.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, don't tell your classes that this is it. This is the only way to do this shit. When I'm teaching a class, I kind of apologize the entire time I'm teaching. I'm like, just know that this isn't the only way to do this. Okay, but take it or leave it. I'm doing that all the time. And I probably need to stop that, because it's a little bit like, is this guy confident in what he's doing at all?
No, but I mean, I 100% agree, because like, even though like the way I teach is very different from like the way they teach the groundlings. Like, I always, if a student's like, should I take the groundlings? I'm like, you should take anyone whose perspective you want to put in your tool belt, because the more you learn, you're going to synthesize it all and make your own thing.
Yeah. I talk a lot about the fact that I've played in almost any situation you can play in. Like I've done outdoor stuff. I played on a golf course on the 18th hole. I mean, I've done a lot of different things. And the only reason that I'm able to do those different situations is because of the tool belt that you're talking about. Yeah. Picking up things that other people have done. And I just do it through observation more than anything, because like I said, I don't take classes or anything. But, there might be a class I want to take. Maybe I'll take a class with you, Rich. Maybe I'll do that.
Bring it on.
The richbaker style of improv. The tool belt's so important to get as much as you can from as many people as you can. Be a sponge,
Yeah.
Don't just be set in your ways, because you got to change with the times, and you got to change. You got to grow as a human.
Well, and I mean, that's exactly my expression is looking back at how you used to teach, whether it was 7 years ago when you started, teaching for pay or just directing earlier. Mm-hmm. Like, how have you evolved as a teacher?
Like I said, I'm much more open to the students like giving input than I was in the past. Probably, like, I was very much a dictatorial. Like, this is what I'm teaching you, and you're going to listen to me, and that's it. I like to open the floor up a lot more now. And I love a challenge in class. Like, when somebody challenges me about something, like, well, I don't know if that makes sense because blah, 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 and I'm taught to them, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, but let's see, what do you think about this? So we have a discussion going rather than just me telling you what to do the whole time. There's nothing worse than a quiet class. And I love a class that's kind of rowdy, and like wants to do improv. And
love it. Yes.
And challenge. Yeah.
No, I love that too. When a student is like, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, ooh, here's an opportunity for me to learn how to explain it better.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes they can a lot. I mean, not a lot of times, but sometimes about 50-50, they convince me that they're right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, you know what? Throw out what I just said for an hour. This is right. Let's start the class over and do it that way. No, just learning for the future, always learning.
That's silly, but I remember in college I took a 1 day workshop with a novelist who was like, "Here's how you can be a novelist," and he was like, "Here's the three reasons why a character would do something," and I can't remember what they were, but Kill Bill had just I think just come out or something like that, and I was just like, "What about revenge?" And he just
Yeah.
stopped for a second. And he goes, "I'm gonna add that to my list."
Excellent. That's good that they were amenable to that, though. I mean, they were like, yeah, of course, you're right.
Yeah,
Because I'm not. I mean, how do you teach somebody how to write a novel? That reminds me of the movie Adaptation.
yeah.
Have you ever seen that one where
Oh yeah.
like Brian Cox? I think it's Brian Cox, isn't it? Yeah, he's like teaching how to write a script. It's like
Yeah.
there's this and this, and don't you dare do this. It's like, all right, whatever.
Yes, sir, Mr. Brian Cox.
And you pay people, you pay these teachers for the tongue lashing and the abuse you get. Yeah, no, that's not what I like.
That old school model, though, I mean, I feel like that we used to value these teachers who were drill sergeanty and insulting and whatnot. And I mean, at least for me, like, I see that as archaic and unnecessary and just like,
Absolutely.
I'd rather have teachers that are just like open and everything. I think that's a better
Yeah,
learning environment.
it's unnecessary until it's necessary. If you have a student that's just like, or a class even that's just like bringing in shit from outside or whatever, you got to stop everything and just say, look, we got to take this seriously here, guys. You're not taking anything seriously or whatever. I had this one class that I've done it more than once, but this one sticks in my head because it really, like, they still talk to me. People that were in that class still talk to me about it today.
Nice.
I told them, like, flat out at one point, I was like, if you're not in this, if you're not actually trying today, you're insulting everything I do. You're insulting everything about who I am, because this is important to me, and it should be important to you too. You paid for this. Like, I said that kind of shit to them, and they all just got real quiet, like I was a teacher, coming down on them and stuff. And like I said, to this day, a couple of them still talk to me about that day and how it affected them.
That's so cool. What a movie moment you had there.
Yeah.
When they make the biography movie of Chuy Zarate, that scene will 100% be in the movie.
They talked about it in their class because I was subbing that day, and they talked about it with their regular teacher after I was gone. And they, like, it was a discussion the next week. Like, hey, what he said was this and this, and I got feedback from the other teacher that it actually was kind of a good thing in the end. So
That's
good.
cool, man. What an impact you made on, like, they're still talking about it even this day.
Yeah, they were being really pissy with each other. I got tired of it. I'm like, we're wasting time with this shit. Let's do some improv.
Take it. When it comes to teaching, do you have any preference over like teaching like a multi-day class versus like a 1 day workshop, or versus coaching a team over time? Like, do you have any preference?
I love coaching teams.
Yeah.
I love that because it's more diagnostic than anything else, and you get to know them and you get to know what their little quirks are and things. I love that. I also I do really like 1 day workshops, like 2-3 hours. Those are the best. I love those because it's just kind of a little nugget of great. You get to really pour everything in as fast as you can, and everybody absorbs it and loves it, and you'll love each other for like 2-3 hours, and then you're gone.
Yeah.
And you do your thing. It's great. If I'm teaching newer improvisers, like brand new improvisers, I want them for several classes. But I don't know. I don't know that I need to teach older improvisers for a long period of time. I think I'd be very repetitive in that class. There's only so many things. There's only so many silly exercises you can do when somebody's been in it for 5-6 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're just doing scene work the entire time, and then it becomes more theatrical and like it should be. And I don't know. I think they'd get more out of just doing at that point than taking classes with me over time, like several, But yeah, I like new people. Oh yeah, and I love teaching kids. I love teaching kids. Yeah, they're the best because I've noticed this in my time. A kid that's 5-6 years old is going to give the exact same suggestions as a 75-year-old. It's ridiculous to me. Like, they do. We're just all so ingrained with those things. Let me have a location. It's always beach. let me have, what's a utensil in your kitchen? Spatula. Even, I mean, it goes from the gamut of ages,
Mm.
Um, and so when I teach kids, it's really interesting to kind of help them to form a different mode of thinking rather than this like linear societal thinking that we have,
Yeah.
that because everybody wants to be on a beach. That's why they say that. It's like
Sure.
all these things that are ingrained in your head. Uh, but I do teach right now. I teach my kids, my two boys, my older one's 16 and 18. They have a troop at their high school, like I did. They started a troop, and I teach them every week. Not right now because we're in summer, but I've been really happy with the growth that's happened in that class. It's so much fun to watch them get older and better.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
dig that. Okay, so what is a character voice that you do on stage or have done on stage that still makes you laugh?
That makes me laugh. Oh, I there's several. I always go to this guy, of course. Everybody's got a country guy, but I really I like doing it like a Satan voice, because Satan's always like really mean and stuff. But give me a Pepsi, please, like that thing. Yeah, those two are pretty fun. So country and that. I just like accents too, but accents are becoming so problematic. It's like, oh, I worked so long to be good at Jamaican accents and not making them into Irish accents. Because I mean, it really does. It like if you're doing an Irish accent, it eventually slips into Jamaican. There's no way to stop it. And so I finally got good at keeping that apart, and it's just not something I do on stage anymore, just because I'm not that person.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be stereotyping. If the character's from a real place, I'll use the accent.
Mhm.
But if it's like if it's just to joke around, that's shitty. I've come to realize that nowadays. So
Yeah, I've had a lot of students ask me like, when is it okay to use accents, when is it not? And I said, if the accent itself is the joke, you're probably not doing it right.
yeah,
But if it's just part of the character who's playing in the world, then you're probably better off that
you're
way.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. What's your character voice? What's your favorite character voice?
I like this little kid voice, because like sometimes he gets like real excited about things. Right?
That's like Bobcat Goldthwait or something. That's really good.
I mean, almost you can trace almost all my voices back to '80s comedies.
Nice. Guilty.
I've got so many Bobcat Goldthwait like slight permutations.
It's just all like it's all.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, there he is again a little bit.
Yeah, he's alive and well in here.
Excellent, good stuff.
Oh my god. Obviously we can't know, but you have just as good a guess as anybody, being as long as you. Where do you think improv is going?
It's gonna be all right.
Great.
All right. It's gonna be all right. It's easy to get scared right now because things are closing and things are going away, but there's always a place for this. And that's the one thing I've learned from my beginnings is like, I did it in my high school. There's a way to do it that way.
Yeah.
I did it in a bar. There's a way to do it that way. And eventually we'll get back to what's like our ideal, which is a theater.
Yeah.
And there's still theaters that are open. So support the hell out of those as much as you can so that, other things come from them. They can only blossom into other things. I really miss the fact that we won't have 5 theaters here anymore. I think we're down to like 2, which is great. And they're great theaters and they do a lot of work all the time. But there's one that moved strictly online because they lost their space. I drove by there just yesterday and it's like torn down. It's terrible.
Ugh.
It made me kind of hurt my heart a little bit. But everything's going to be okay. It really is because we're strong. We're strong people when we do this work. You have to be because you're going to get a lot of failures in improv, and you have to be able to handle that. And that makes the successes all the better. And
it makes us very resilient. A resilient art form.
Right. You can knock it down, but it's going to come back. It's been around since forever ago. I mean, since the Renaissance, since before that even.
Yeah.
I don't think cave people had scripts. when they were dancing out their stories to each other. You
Uh,
know,
I have an issue with this line of dialogue.
oh, me sorry, me no, me, og sorry, og. That's the classic Neanderthal voice, and og, me
Og.
og.
Oh yeah, everyone's named Og.
Yeah.
It is so great talking to you, Chewy. Where are we gonna send people for more of you? What are you plugging?
Well, in a couple days, I think, or next week, is the Everybody Get In Here festivals going on, and I've got a
Which
slot.
by the
for
time this
Hideout.
comes out, will have been a few weeks ago.
Oh, it will have been weeks ago. Okay, so never mind that. Good. I hope you saw that. But you can see me mostly working through the Hideout Theater.
Oh, great.
I work there a lot and do a lot of online stuff for them right now. And I just got into a troupe called Disaster Time,
Nice.
which is kind of an international troupe that does murder mystery sort of stuff. It's fun.
Oh, wow.
It's like a choose your own adventure thing. Well, pick your own path. You can't say choose your own adventure because they'll sue you.
Oh.
But, yeah, Choose Your Own Adventure did not like it when the Hideout did one of those shows, and we called it Choose Your Own Adventure. So now it's Pick Your Own Path. But
Wow.
yeah, hey, you're not anybody until you get a cease and desist.
I didn't know those books from my fourth grade part of life were so litigious.
Oh man, they are mean people, I guess. I mean, think about it. They kill you in those things. They're kids killing them. I mean, and you take a turn and you fall into a void and you're gone forever. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but
What are you talking to these kids about?
I don't like reading anymore.
I don't want to do it. I want to go back to page 80. Yeah, so you can see me with the Hideout mostly in Disaster Time. And then once we start up again, I'm sure. I'm in a troupe called Luby's Bingo Hall now that started online. That's going to start doing live shows in Austin. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Well, Julie Zarate, thank you. It's so great talking to you.
And always
Gonna
good to
be
see you.
okay.
When are we going to get back to Oklahoma, man?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go
We
back
got to
to
go to
Oklahoma.
OKC. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to start
Oh.
festivaling again.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait.
I know, right? Well, first I got to get unbroke. I got to get some money going first.
That's we can talk about that all day.
Hey, if any
Well,
festival wants to fly me out, I'm open. I'm ready to teach. Let's do this.
you heard it here, festivals. He will work for plane tickets.
I will. Absolutely. Just to go. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
I love it. Truth Rider, thank you so much for being on the breakdown.
It's my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, Rich.